everyone, welcome back to another video. Last year I brought you my favorite coloring books, or my top 10 coloring books of 2020, and so of course this year I had to come back and bring you my top 10 coloring books for 2021. I just very recently did a video where I showed you my favorite coloring supplies, and so not much of that has changed. Last year I did one for my favorite coloring supplies as well as coloring books, but since I hadn't done one this year yet for coloring books, I'm going to go ahead and do that in this video. I'm not just going to show you what my top 10 coloring books are. I will flip through them a little bit. I will talk a little bit about which pencils work best in each one of these books. Generally for me, if I have a favorite coloring book, it is one of my favorite artists, whether I have just discovered them or I have really enjoyed this artist for quite a while. So in this video, I'm also going to show you a couple other books by the same artist that I really love. They may not necessarily be my absolute favorite, but I will show you which one is my favorite, and then I will do a couple honorable mentions from the same artist. If you watched my video last year for 2020, you will notice that some of these will be the same, but some of them are going to be different. I've got a couple new favorites, so those are going to be added into this video, and some of the ones that were in my video last year are no longer in this video. If you've not seen that video, I will link it in the upper right hand corner so you could check that one out after you finish watching this one. Anything that you see in this video, I will have them linked down in the description box below, as well as anywhere else you could find me on social media, like my Facebook group, my email list, and my Patreon if you would like to support me there. I also do have an Etsy store where I have a color combination and blending tutorial workbook, as well as lots of other color swatching charts and color combination sheets. Okay, so we all know that my very first favorite, my number one, is always going to be Johanna Basford's World of Flowers, and I highly doubt that will ever change. Every year when I do one of these videos, you will most likely see this book as my number one. If you've been watching my channel for quite some time, you know that a lot of the tutorials you see on my channel where I'm coloring flowers, a lot of them are from this book. Just gonna flip through the books just a little bit so you can see a couple of the pages for those of you that haven't seen this coloring book quite yet. And you're probably going to see a lot of things like this where I have some of the pages colored, or just certain places on a page colored, and that's because I do private coloring classes and sometimes I'm trying to demonstrate something. Or in this book you're going to find also a lot of pages where I've done a color along, or like each one of these were separate tutorials, or where I have tested out pencils. So you'll see that, or a lot of that, in this book. And let me go ahead and just flip through so you could see some of the pages. But it's going to be a lot of flowers. So this was a color along that I did on my channel, but I don't think that I did every single one of the flowers. I think that there were a couple of them that there were not videos for, and so I'm not sure if this one is in a playlist, but if you search my channel for Johanna Basford flowers or color along or anything like that, this will definitely come up. This here was another tutorial that I did where I showed you how to color a leaf, many different colors, and I thought it turned out really cool. It looks very iridescent like. But as the title says, World of Flowers, every single page is just flowers. These two here were tutorials as well. As far as the pencils that are going to work best for you in this book, you will find that Prismacolors work beautifully in this book. I love the way my Prismacolors go down in this book, and they're probably my favorites to be able to use in this book. I've also used my Pablos. I've used them in this book, as well as Magical Jungle and Secret Garden. I have used my Polychromos, but I don't like my Polychromos in this book as much as I enjoy using my Prismacolors in this book. On this paper, the Prismacolors just sort of glide around, and you could apply layer after layer, and they work just beautifully. But the paper in this book is pretty thick. It's a very nice paper. It's not completely white, but it has a little bit of that off-white look but I love, love, love the paper in this book. If you wanted to use watercolors in this book, I've done that as well. And as long as you don't use a whole lot of water and you're just very, very careful, you will find that the watercolors work okay as well in this book. And I think I've even used Inktense. So those really performed beautifully in this book as well. So I colored all of these bugs, and each one of these is with a different pencil. This bug here, I was testing out my Pablo, my Caran d'Ache Pablo, when I first received them. And those pencils worked beautifully in this book. They blend very nicely. I really, really love those pencils. And then this one here was done with Polychromos. And I feel like I had a little bit of a harder time getting the Polychromos to blend the way that I want them to blend, or the way that I'm used to. So with the Polychromos, you have to lay them down a little bit differently because you have to apply them in layers. But the Pablos are also the same, and they lay down in very light layers much better. But I like the way that the Pablos lay down much better than the Polychromos. And then down here, I used these Spearfarben pencils, and I really did like how those performed in this book as well. But I think that my favorites out of these three were the Pablos, and I really like how they lay down on this bug here. And I was saving this bug here to test out another set. I was probably going to use that to test out the 240 Kaler set. And like I said, I'm going to have a couple honorable mentions from the same artist. So from Johanna Basford, I have included Secret Garden as an honorable mention. I really, really love this book. This was the very first coloring book I ever purchased when I started my coloring journey. So this one has a really close place in my heart, and I really do love this book. But the images in here are absolutely beautiful. If you look at this, the paper is a little bit different in this one. The paper here in this book has a much more manila look than in this book here. I could hold them right next to each other and you can see the difference in the paper. This one is much more yellow and this one is much more white. So it almost makes this one look like a very bright white when you put it up against this book here. But the paper in the Secret Garden book is very nice as well, but the paper still feels the same. The paper in these books is smooth with a very little bit of tooth, but the paper is very good quality. And here are a couple of the pages in this book. I'm not going to flip through the whole thing because it's going to make for a very long video. But the pages in here are absolutely beautiful. I think here I was using Prismacolors to color this, but that's a tutorial on my channel showing how to color those roof tiles. But this is a really beautiful book. And then these are a couple pages that I colored when I first got my Prismacolors, when I first started my coloring journey. So this was one of my very first coloring books, and I was using Polychromos for a little while, and then I got my Prismacolors, and I think it was the 36 set, and then I colored these two pages, but this is when I was very much a beginner. So that is Secret Garden. And then my next honorable mention by Johanna Basford is Magical Jungle. And I'm just going to go ahead and just flip through here just a little bit. And you could see here that this is where the paper started to change. This is one of her older books. But you could see that the paper is much whiter and it looks a lot more like World of Flowers. So if you see anything colored, it was definitely somewhere in a tutorial here on my channel. But this book has a lot of leaves on it. If you want to practice leaves, this is the book for that. And if you want to practice your backgrounds, this is definitely the book for that as well, because you've got a lot of background space. But there's birds and you can see butterflies, flowers, leaves, lots of leaves though, and animals in here. And that is a really, really nice book. So my second absolute favorite coloring book is Romantic Country, and this is by Erie. This is an absolutely beautiful book. I've done quite a few tutorials out of this book on my channel as well, and most of you that have been following me for some time, you know that this is one of my favorite books. And you can see that I've got paper clips in it just here and there because these were tutorials that I did. This was a tutorial, I believe, on gel pens that I just did very recently. You could see that there is a lot of very cute artwork, and one of the reasons that I really love this book and find it so unique is because the artist actually drew all of these images in using only a toothpick. but you could see that the theme sort of stays the same throughout the entire book. This was a page that I used for my tips and tricks series. So this page looks like quite a mess because I've done so many different things on it. I did backgrounds and I did a tutorial here on how to use the white of the paper to really create that highlight. But I have done quite a few tutorials out of this book. But if you go to the back of this book, you can see here that it is actually like a story. So you've got chapters. You've got chapter 1, chapter 2. There is a story for every single page right along with the page number. And so it kind of takes you along on a little journey, which is really, really neat. And then if you come to the back of the book, it has these little posters here that you can detach. And here are the posters. I don't want to open them up because I don't want to take those out of the book, but it comes with the posters and then it comes with the perforation there to take them out of the book. It looks like it has a bunch of the characters here that you would just cut out individually, and then you would just put them here, and then you would make like this big poster type elevated thing where the characters kind of come to life. And I guess you can go and you can color it all. And then it gives you a little suggestion down here about how you can make copies of the images if you wanted to, and then you can make different mixing arrangements and combinations. But the paper in this book, or in any of these books from Erie, it is very smooth, and there is not a whole lot of tooth on these pages, but the way that the pencils lay down on this paper is really just amazing because it just sort of glides. And whether you're using Prismacolors or you're using Polychromos, they both work really, really well. But very recently, I actually did a tutorial where I used one of these books. It might be the second or the third tale, but I pulled out my Polychromos for a tutorial and showed you how to blend oil-based pencils. I'll try to link that in the upper right-hand corner if I can, but that was a really great tutorial, and I used Polychromos in this book, and they go down beautifully on this paper. I was really, really impressed. I will say, though, that gel pens worked beautifully in this book when I was doing this tutorial. I'll try to link that if I can in the upper right-hand corner, but they worked beautifully in this book, and the ones that worked the best were actually the Art and Fly gel pens. And then as far as honorable mentions go, I have the second tale, and I also have the third tale, and I believe that the third tale is out of print and very hard to get unless you may be able to get it from Amazon Japan. I'm really not sure on that, or maybe a copy from Etsy. But as for trying to get it from Amazon or a bookstore, you're not going to be able to find this book anymore. So I'll just flip through this one really quickly so that you could see some of the pages and the artwork. It looks like the artwork in this book might be just a little bit darker than the other one. I don't know. Is it? Let me see. Yeah. The artwork in this book is just a little bit darker, but I really just love these books because I can't imagine being an artist and actually creating all of this by putting ink on a toothpick. Is that not amazing? So many artists now are going to digital because it's just so much easier, and they're able to just copy over images and do kind of the same thing or a lot of the same thing in their books. So a lot of artists are doing that now. So the fact that an artist just did all of this with a toothpick and some ink is just absolutely amazing to me. But that book there is the third tale, and then here is the second tale, and I'll just flip through so you could see some of the pages. Here we have some castles and a carriage, and this one is very fairy tale like, at least the first chapter of this book. Like I said earlier, this book is going to go in chapters, so after you flip through a few pages, you're going to be in another chapter, and the story kind of changes up a little bit. You can see here that we just changed chapters, so this one is called Fairies and Works of Nature. So of course you're going to see lots of fairies until you get to the next chapter. But that is the second tale. So those are the romantic country books. I really, really love those. Okay, so this one is definitely a new one for this year. Actually, I don't think that the Erie books were in my video last year either. And I think this year I really just discovered a new love for those books. But this is definitely new as well for this year. This is Forest Girls coloring book. And this is a gorgeous coloring book. Like when I say gorgeous, there is just no exaggeration. Like gorgeous is not even enough to describe this book. This book is beautiful. The artwork is gorgeous. This is the premium edition, and I'm not sure as far as the first series, the second, and the third. I do have a couple others over here set aside to share with you because, like I said, I want to do an honorable mention for each one of the artists or each separate series that I show you if there is a series of books. So this one is hardback. And if I flip this open, like, look how gorgeous this book is. It's just so well made. I am not sure if this book is still available on Amazon, but if it is, I will make sure that I have it linked down in the description box below so that you can find it. But this book is just all kinds of beautiful. The paper is amazing. Let me go ahead and just show you. But you could hear how thick the paper is, and the paper has so much tooth. Like, this is just the perfect paper for colored pencils. And I'll just flip through and show you a couple of the images in here. And I believe that I did one tutorial in this book where I showed how to color wood. I'm not sure if I'll be able to find it here. I'm just going to show you a couple of the pages. But you could see that they've got the little dots here. So if you wanted to take the pages out of the book, you would be able to do that. I don't know who would want to do that. I would never, ever, ever take this book apart. I would just never, ever do that. So over here on this side, it has the actual artwork. And then on this side, you can take your colored pencils and you could actually copy this, or you can do your own thing over here if you wanted to. And a lot of these are going to have a lot of background space so that you are free to do any kind of background you want. And this paper will pretty much handle anything. Oh, and here is the tutorial I did showing how to color wood and create texture. I really need to finish this page. This seems like such an easy, quick color, and I really need to work on this a little bit more. But for this tutorial, I used Prismacolors. The Prismacolors lay down so beautifully in this book, but I'm sure with this book, I've not tried other pencil sets, but I'm sure with this book, like, this is your typical really nice colored pencil paper. So I'm pretty sure any pencils you take to this book are going to work. I'm pretty sure that you could probably even use watercolors or other mediums in this book if you wanted to. But the only thing is that it is not single-sided. You're going to have this gorgeous image over here on this side. So you really don't want anything to go through, or at least I don't want anything to go through to the other side. So I would probably never use anything other than colored pencils in this book. But let me go ahead and flip through and just show you the rest of some of these images. And every single page is going to be like that, where you've got the image or the painting on one side, and then you've got yours on the other side to be able to color and copy or do your own thing. And then this one seems to be in chapters, or this says part 2 actually at the top. So it's kind of the same idea as the Eerie books, and it has a little story. Of course, I can't read it. But the images are just beautiful. I mean, look at this. That is Forest Girls coloring book, the premium edition. And then for my honorable mentions, I have the only other 2 that I have. I don't know if there's more in the series. I don't think there is. I'm not really sure if there are more Forest Girl coloring books, but these are the 2 that I have. And a wonderful subscriber sent these to me after they saw how excited I was over the other book. But I will say that these books here, the paper is going to be much different. And I'm not sure which is the first, which is the second, and which is the third. You can see that the artwork is very, very similar. I think there was a page in the other book that was very similar to this one, but the paper is very, very smooth. I really like to pull out my Polychromos for paper that is smoother. Like I said, the Eerie book that I just showed you a minute ago, the paper in those books are rather smooth, and when I used my Polychromos on that paper, it worked absolutely beautifully on that paper. So they would probably work beautifully in this book as well. But the paper is much smoother in here than it is in those Eerie books. But you can see that the theme for the Forest Girl books does kind of stay the same. And you've got the painted image on this side, and then you've got the image for you to copy over here or to do your own thing. And you've got lots of background space as well on this one. And you still have the dotted lines here if you were wanting to take the picture out of the book and frame it for some reason. Again, I would never do that because to me, these books are a collector's item. This is the other one, and again, I'm not sure which one is the first, the second, or the third, but this one is the same as the one I just showed you, where the paper is very, very smooth. I think that the paper is the same in both of these books. Let me see. This one is definitely very, very smooth with no tooth. And this one is smooth, but it feels like it does actually have a little bit of tooth. So this one might be a little bit easier to be able to use your Prismacolors or some of your wax-based pencils that work very well on paper that has a lot of tooth. And I'm not colored in this one yet, so I really can't give you many more ideas as far as the colored pencil recommendations in this book. But those are my two honorable mentions, and these are the only other two books that I know of that are in the Forest Girl series. So this here is Flowers and Gems by Grazia Salvo, and this is and always will be one of my favorite books. This one was mentioned as well in my video from last year, but I absolutely love this book. And it is actually spiral bound and it is perforated. The paper in this book is beautiful. Like, it is smooth but has a little bit of tooth at the same time. And it is wonderful with Prismacolors. I've used Prismacolors in here and I have used luminance. But look at the artwork. If you love grayscale and you want to practice portraits, this is definitely a book to try. And this should still be available on Amazon. Again, I'll have it linked down in the description box below. But I really, really love this book. I mean, look at the artwork. Could it be any more beautiful? Look at her dress. I mean, you could make this dress look like a wedding dress. I mean, that may be what it is supposed to be. You can practice coloring white and color the entire dress white. As the title says, Flowers and Gems, all of the girls have jewelry on. So I like to pull out my Posca pens sometimes and my gel pens. This is one that I colored in here and I absolutely love it. And I think for her hair, I may have used Arteza's. It was either Arteza's or Prismacolors. It might have been Prismacolors. It's been quite a while, so it's very hard to remember. I colored that one quite a long time ago. But this book is just absolutely gorgeous, and you're going to have lots of gems in here. You could get out your metallic pens, and the paper is so thick, it's one-sided, so nothing is going to go through on you. And so you won't have to worry about that. I would, if you decide you want to use markers or something in this book, I would make sure that you put something behind the page. This is one of my whips that I still have to finish. For this one, I'm using luminance, and I love the way they're working. I've been practicing making her sleeves translucent, and I'm just a little bit stuck on this one. For some things, I just need to wait a little bit until I get a little bit more inspiration, but I'm trying to figure out what to do with her crown here, and then she's got these little beads here that come down into her hair. I might grab my gel pens to finish this off, but I wanted her hair to be kind of like a gray black. There was a period when I was coloring this this picture here, a lot of women were going and dyeing their hair gray, which to me is very, very strange because I try very hard to get rid of my gray. But a lot of women were dyeing their hair that gray color, and I wanted to see if I could sort of create that here with my luminance on her hair, and I thought it turned out really, really pretty. So her hair is like a gray with a very subtle hint of black. So that is Flowers and Gems by Grazia Salvo. And then I have a couple honorable mentions here by her, and these books here, she has an Etsy store. But I don't know, I don't too often, or I don't think I even ever have, ordered an actual book from Etsy. I use Etsy to purchase PDFs. I don't necessarily use it to purchase coloring books because the shipping can cost a whole lot of money because I'm in the US and a lot of these wonderful artists are in other countries, and so the shipping just costs so much money. And so you're paying almost as much for the shipping as you are for the coloring book. This is one that I ordered on Amazon. This is her Wild Soul coloring book. And the images in here, I've not yet had a chance to color in it because when I got it, I really was kind of unsure about the paper. I don't think this is the Amazon paper. Like if you look at this book, okay, so this is a typical Amazon book. And so you can see that the size here is different. I have maybe another inch up here on this book. Let me move this one out of the way so maybe you could see a little bit better. But the book is a very strange size. So it's going to be taller and then it's not going to be as wide. I have this book here that is your typical Amazon printed book. This has a little bit more, maybe like a quarter of an inch over here, kind of hanging off the edge. So it's not, I don't think that this is the Amazon paper, but I'm not quite sure. It just says Amazon soft cover edition. But I don't know, it feels a little bit different than what I would get in the Amazon books. But just look at this grayscale and look at the artwork. Is this not absolutely beautiful? Look at the animals in here. They just look so realistic. It's absolutely beautiful. Like this girl has freckles. Like I picture her a redhead. And oh my gosh, now I want to color this. Look at the cute little baby chick. This is just so beautiful. And she has so many different hairstyles in her books. Some you will find that the grayscale is a little bit darker, and some you will find that the grayscale is a little bit lighter. And then here on this one, you've got all this background here that you can fill in. And then on this one as well. But this is an absolutely gorgeous book. And then this one also became available on Amazon, and I wanted it for the longest time, but like I said, I don't usually order from the Etsy stores because of the cost of shipping, and I was really surprised when I saw this on Amazon. So I'll just flip through here really quick and you can see the images. They look a lot like the Flowers and Gems book, and it kind of looks like the same idea. But there is just beautiful artwork throughout the entire book. And again, you'll see that in some places the grayscale is darker and in some places it's a little bit lighter. But I really love this artist and her coloring books, and especially this one because the quality of the paper is just absolutely amazing, and I feel like the paper makes all the difference in the world. But since I've not colored in either one of these books yet, I would imagine that the same pencils that I use in my Amazon books would probably apply to these as well. It feels similar to the Amazon books, but I'm not sure that it is the Amazon paper. I think this is just her Amazon edition that she is selling on Amazon, because I'm not sure that Amazon actually prints in this size. But I am going to be getting to some of my favorites here that are the Amazon books, and I will be sharing the pencils that I use in my Amazon books as well. Okay, so my next favorite, those of you that have been watching my videos for quite some time, you knew you were going to see Maria Trolle. I've had quite a few tutorials in this book. One of my most popular videos on my channel where I showed you all highlighting and shadows and did like a full tutorial on that, like where the lighting is coming from and where to lay your colors, and showed you texture. That came from this book. And so this is Nightfall. This is my absolute favorite book by Maria Trolle, and I've been saying Maria Trolle because I've heard a lot of people say her name that way, but I've also heard a lot of people say Maria Troll, so I'm really not sure the correct way to say her last name. So we're going with Maria Trolle. But you're going to see a lot of pages in here from tutorials. This was a tutorial. These were probably testing out pencils. This here was a tutorial. So this was Black Widows. The Black Widows work very nicely in this book. The paper in this book is not a bright white. It is a little bit more of an off-white, sort of like the Johanna Basford books. But I feel like this paper has a little bit more tooth in it. Let me go ahead and show you how thick the paper is. But it's not as thick, I don't think, as the Johanna Basford books. But it is thick enough to where you can use other mediums in here if you wanted to. But I try to stay away from that just because the pages are not one-sided. In this book, it is very, very nice. You're going to have the nice hardback in this book. Very, very nice, and it protects all of the images that are inside once you go through and start coloring. But on books that are only one-sided, I generally only like to use colored pencils. But these here, this was from a question and answer, and I'll try to link that if I can. I'm not going to be able to link everything because I know I always have in the comments, okay, well, do you have the video where you colored that or where you colored this? And sometimes I'm able to link, but other times I'm not because it only allows you to link 5 videos. But this is one of the most popular videos on my channel, so I will make sure that one is linked if you are curious about this one. But it was basically a tutorial on texture, and I used my Artezas here, and here I used the square, the 120 square Brute Fooners, and those pencils work beautifully in this book as well. In these books, you're going to get some of the black backgrounds. If you don't want to color a background and you just want to color the page and you want to really see your images really just pop on the page, this is a fantastic book. You're going to get those black backgrounds on the pages sort of thrown in throughout the book. And then when you get to the back of the book, it's going to have a glossary back here. Well, they call it the plant register. But this is going to show you every single one of the plants and all of the page numbers, and it's going to give you the actual name of the plant. So if you want to go on Google and color your plant or your flower on that page to make it look realistic, you can do so. So that was Nightfall by Maria Trolle. And then of course I have an honorable mention, and this is also one of my favorites by the same artist. This is Botanicum. Let's go ahead and I will just flip through here and show you some of the images in this book. But a lot of her artwork does look very much the same. I mean, that's the same with every artist. A lot of their art looks very similar from book to book. But this one does have some things in it that are very, very different. Like a lot of her other books don't have images like this. Look how cute this is. That is adorable though. The little girl sitting there. We've got a little ladybug here. She's just sitting up on this vine of leaves. But this is super, super cute. A lot of her books do have animals in them. So we have a cat here. We had a bunny that you just saw. And then again, we have the black backgrounds. But that is a beautiful book as well. And I really do enjoy this one. Okay, so I think that this was in my video from last year. This is Kirby Rosanas, and this is Worlds Within Worlds. Again, I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly or not, so I've heard so many people say it so many different ways, but this book here is my absolute favorite book by this artist. And I have a few of the Color Morphia books, but as far as those books go, I don't really get into those as much. I really, really love this book though. So when I saw this one was released, I purchased this one instantly. But if you look through here, it looks like the artwork is extremely like intricate. But when you start coloring all of this gray and everything, it really does help you a little bit with your coloring, because I like to generally use all the extra lines and the darker details as a guide when I'm coloring. But there are quite a few double page spreads in this book like this one. Let me go ahead and show you the paper. So this is what the paper sounds like. And I think the paper in this book is, as far as thickness, it's similar to what you're going to find in the Maria Trolle books that I just showed you. But as far as the way the paper feels a little bit smoother. It doesn't have as much tooth. But I've used my Prismacolors in here, and I think that's all I've used in this book. And this is one that I colored, but I definitely used Prismacolors for this, and I think a little bit of gel pen and some Posca. So you can use some other things on this paper, but you need to also remember that it could end up going through. I mean, if you try to use watercolors or something, I'm sure that they would work. I'm sure your Derwent Inktense would go down beautifully on this paper. I've seen people actually use Derwent Inktense on this paper, but even if you put something to the back, you cannot necessarily be sure that it's not going to go through. And for me, I just like to stick to colored pencils in books like this, unless I have 2 copies of the book and I just want to use one book to do things where I bring in other mediums. This one here, this was another color along. Actually, I don't think this was a color along. I did this one when I first started my YouTube channel. And actually, this page is the entire reason why I started my YouTube channel because somebody wanted to see a tutorial on these leaves. I think that was actually my very first video that I ever did. And I went back and I watched that video. Oh my gosh, what a wreck. I don't know. I think a lot of people really did benefit from that video, but that was like my very first video I ever filmed. So of course I leave those up on my channel because, you know, memories. But this is a really nice book. And the only pencils I've ever used in it are the Prismacolors because I really love how they work in this book on this paper. But this is Worlds Within Worlds by Kirby Rosanas. And my honorable mention is one of his newer books. This is Fragile World. Again, this book is not part of the Color Morphia series, and that may be why I tend to like it a little bit more. This one reminds me very much of the Worlds Within Worlds book, but I will just go ahead and flip through here and show you some of the pages. Now, the paper, this page right here, I love this page, love. But the paper in this book is very similar. If you want to color animals, then this is a fantastic book to be able to do that. But the images in here are just gorgeous. And I've seen so many of these pages colored, and the way that they turn out is just like, wow. But again, I've only used Prismacolors in these books, and the paper is the same paper as the one I just showed you. But that is Fragile World by Kirby Rosanas. And so this is Magical Dawn by Hannah Carlzon. And this is one of my absolute favorite coloring books. We actually did a color along in this book on my channel. But the paper in this book, let me show you. It feels about the same thickness as what you're going to find in the Maria Trolle books. But this paper, it's good paper, but like if I'm looking at the paper very closely, I could see the lines here behind it from the other page. And so the paper might even be a little bit thinner than it is in the Maria Trolle books, but the paper is also a little bit of an off-white. It is not a bright white, but I do really love this book. And I've used my Prismacolors in this book, and I find that they look really well. I actually very recently started coloring something in one of her books. I don't even remember which book it was, but I just recently started coloring something in one of her books. And I believe I was using my fine liners and my Posca pens. And I think that I was using them right along with my Prismacolors. You could bring your other, tools into here and use your gel pens and your Posca pens, and I used my fine liners. It all just really came together really beautifully, but the artwork is just gorgeous in this book. On this page, I actually used my gelatos. And you could see that the paper handled it, but the paper is very crinkled. You can hear it. And of course, because I decided to use gelatos on this page, I cannot go back and color this page because this page is now very messed up, and you can see that it came through over here. So like I said, if you are worried about that and the fact that the pages are one-sided and you don't want to ruin the images on the other side, then I wouldn't bring in other mediums. But I used quite a few other mediums on this page. It looks like I used Stickles a little bit over here. I used some Stickles over here, and I believe the white is probably Posca, and then my gelatos. But all of the colored pencil, that is all done with Prismacolors. Then here is a page that I just recently started, and on this one, I think that I actually used these markers here. These are the Nuvo glitter markers, and let me see if those went through. But no, the glitter markers did not go through. So that's good, right? It didn't ruin the other side at all. And this right here, this is all glitter markers. And then a lot of this is fine liner. This was a bit of a tutorial on one of my more recent videos where I showed all of the different things that you can do with fine liners in your coloring books. So that is Magical Dawn by Hannah Carlzon. And then my next favorite by Hannah Carlzon is her jewelry box book. The paper is going to be the same in here. Again, I think that I've only ever used Prismacolors in these books. but you can see some of the images in this one. There's a lot of jewelry, like the title says. It's called Jewelry Box, so you're going to see lots of jewelry in here. So yeah, here we have a girl, and she's got lots of jewelry on, and we've got lots of gems over here on her clothing. We've got a mirror over here on this side, and this one is leaving us a lot of room for backgrounds. We've got some little like perfume bottles or potion bottles over here. And so that is the whole idea and the whole theme of this entire book. We've got a cute little dog here, and of course he's wearing jewelry too. Isn't that cute? Okay, so again, that was Magical Dawn and Jewelry Box by Hannah Carlson. One of my next favorites is this Maui Mermaids and Island Whimsy Girls. This is by Hannah Lynn, and I absolutely love Hannah Lynn and her artwork. And she is one of the artists that also has a very special place in my heart, because she is one of the first artists that I discovered even before I started a YouTube channel, like years ago. And I still love to color her girls. But this one is Maui Mermaids, and this is an Amazon printed book. You're going to get 50 images in here. I think that in this book, I actually have one of my favorite images that I ever colored, and it has a very special place in my heart, and I'll explain why in just a minute. But with her books, like I said, they are printed on the Amazon paper, so the paper is going to be rather thin, but I've never had any issue coloring on any of the Amazon books. I think the next couple artists that I'm showing you, those are also Amazon printed books. I really actually enjoy coloring on the Amazon printed books. I don't have a problem with it, and I have found that the 120 Brute Fooners actually go down beautifully on this paper. The Pablos, I've used those, the Caran d'Ache Pablos, I've used those in these books. I absolutely love how they go down on this paper. And mostly I've used my Prismacolors. I don't think that I've used anything else. I have brought in other mediums, and I've used Posca pens and things like that, and this paper is fine. It will take it. I think that I've even used watercolor pencils on this paper. As long as you put something behind, you should be fine. But with all of the Hannah Lynn books, all of her girls all have a title. So each page is going to have a title, and I really love that about them. And so you get this page here that's going to show you all of the images that you're going to find in the book. And so there are 2 of those pages, because in this book we're getting 50 images, so you'll get 25 on each one of these. But the line art in this book is a little bit darker, and this is one of her older books. I believe her newer books now, I believe that the line art is quite a bit lighter. But a lot of these artists that used to do the Amazon books that are that started like quite a while ago, they always had the much darker line art. But let me go ahead and flip through this just so you could get an idea of the pages in here. And this here, like I said, this is one of my most favorite pages that I've ever colored. I used Prismacolors in here. I think I used Posca pen, and did I use glitter? Yeah, I see some glitter in there. So they were most likely stickles. But I absolutely love this page. And the reason this page has a special place in my heart is because I colored this page sitting in the hospital when I first found out that my husband had cancer. This was the page that I brought with me to the hospital in my coloring tote. And I sat and colored this. But you can see that I've got either gel pen or Posca on here because I made these little decorative beads all throughout her hair. So I really love how this one turned out, and I did use a color palette on this one. And then I'll just flip through this one so you can see a few more of the images. But the rest of the book is all going to be, like the title said, all mermaids. And y'all know how much I love mermaids. So anything that has mermaids in it. Now, this one is also by Hannah Lynn. These are my honorable mentions, but this one is also one of my favorites. So this is the Fairy Tale Princesses and Storybook Darlings, and of course this one's also on the Amazon paper. And Hannah does also have an Etsy store. So if you want to be able to print your images out on your own paper, like the Spring Hill paper or the Neenah paper, you can definitely do that. But you can see that in this book you're getting 2 images of each one, and this is one of her older books. I'm getting ready to show you another book that this has changed quite a bit, because in her newer books you get 2 images, but one is going to be focused in and one is going to be focused out. And then the one that is focused in much more is going to get rid of a lot of the intricate parts. So if you're a beginner and you just want a quick color and you want to practice a lot more without all the extra intricate detail in the background, you can do that in her newer books. And she might have updated these other books. I am really not sure I'll have to check on that, but she may have updated it and did that with these as well. I'm not sure though, but that is another really, really nice book. And so that is Fairy Tale Princesses and Storybook Darlings. And I just love fairy tales too, so that's why I really love that one. And this is one of her, I don't want to say newer because it may be almost a couple years now, but this is one of my absolute favorites because this book is just so fun. Whimsy Girls Through the Decades, and I just love this book. And I actually colored this image. I can't believe I flipped right open to that image, but I actually colored that image, but I did it on my own paper. This is marker paper because this I colored with absolutely everything you could possibly think of. It is markers, and then it's overlaid with my Pablos, and I used acrylic paint and stickles, and there's just so much going on here. I used Posca and gel pens. There is a whole lot going on here, but I used the smoother paper so that my markers would blend a little bit better together. But that is what I colored from this book. That's this image here. And let me go ahead and show you what I mean by the zoomed in and the zoomed out. So here is the other version of it where it gets rid of a lot of the background. And I don't know that this one is just so much more zoomed in. Some of them she does that way where one is much more zoomed in. I think that this one, she just got rid of all of the intricate parts. So if you wanted to go in and add your own background, you can surely do that. But I'll flip through some of the pages so you could see what the images look like in this one. But you can see here that this is zoomed out much more, so you've got much more of a background. And then here the girl is zoomed in much closer. You can see that because her legs are gone. So she's zoomed in much more. She even doesn't have as much detail on her dress, and there's not as much to color in the background. So you're going to get to the two different images, and you can just choose which one you want to color. Here again, it's the same thing. You get less detail on her dress, and she is zoomed in on the other page quite a bit more. But this is the cutest book ever, and it's just all women from all the different decades, and I just really, really love this one. That is Whimsy Girls Through the Decades. And I wanted to also be able to show you this one. This is Whimsy Girls Celebrate the Holidays. I don't necessarily consider this book one of my favorites, but I wanted to use this to be able to show you. Hannah actually sent me this book, but this book here, you could see that it is spiral bound here at the top. It has a much thicker cover on this one, and then it just flips open to the top, kind of like the Color It books that you've seen here on my channel. And the paper is much different. It's not the paper that you're going to get from Amazon. It is going to be the same idea as the other books where each page has a title, and it's also going to be the same idea where you get one image that is zoomed further out with a lot of more intricate detail in the background, and then the next page that is zoomed much more in with a lot less detail in the background. But the paper here is much smoother. It has a very little bit of tooth on this paper, like I could feel a very little bit of tooth, but not much at all. The paper is much, much smoother, and markers may work well in these books. These books are available on her website, and that is the only place that you could get these. But I'm not going to flip through the whole thing. I just wanted to be able to show you for all of these books, you do have an artist edition available if you want to go with that one. But with these books, you could even use markers in these books. Just make sure you put something behind the page, and all the pages are single-sided. So if you wanted to use markers, you don't have to worry about it bleeding through or going through to the next image. And y'all know I cannot finish this video without my number 10. Now, I want you to know that these books, they're not necessarily in any kind of order. Like some of them I like just as much as others, and it's very hard to put them in order. I would say that right now, the first two, the World of Flowers and the Eerie book, I would say that those two are mostly in order because World of Flowers is my number one all-time favorite book, and Eerie, the Eerie collection of books, those have very quickly become my number two series of books that I really, really enjoy. This one I absolutely love, and that is because this is where I started. I was so obsessed with this book here. When I first discovered Deborah Muller, this was one of the first books that I purchased. The whole entire book is filled with portraits. So you can tell by looking at this book that I have really use this book quite a lot. It's got the front all curled up, and this book has gone with me everywhere. I've taken it to coffee shops. I've taken it out of the house. I've taken it everywhere I have gone. Anytime I've gone to a doctor's office and I just wanted time to sit and color. But when I first discovered Deborah Muller, this was the very first book that I purchased, and this is what got me started on her artwork. And this book just has a very special place in my heart. I mean, the front cover is just so damaged. Like, look, it has marks all over her face and everything. This is what the images look like on the inside. Now, it is all going to be portraits. And I love this book because this is the book that really made me want to start learning how to color skin and how to do portraits. And this is the book that really helped me to improve. And they're not like your typical portraits. They're just kind of out there, and they're very different, and they just have their own unique style. There's just, I don't know, something special about them to me. This was one of the first things that I ever colored. This was the first time I ever colored skin was on this page here. Now, this was done with Prismacolors, and this is when I was very much a beginner. You can see that there is still a whole lot of white of the paper still showing through here. But I did already have my stickles, and so I was putting stickles on for her eyeshadow. But this book is just very different. But this book is going to be unlike any other book that you find out there with portraits in it. And it's just, I don't know, it's just so different. And I've just enjoyed coloring so many of the pages in here. I mean, there was a time when I did nothing but color in this book. Now, this page here was also one of the pages that I did, one of the very first pages that I did. And I actually have a video or a two-part series here on my channel where I came back later and I went and enhanced the skin and changed it up exactly how I would color now. This page did not look like this before, but if you go back and you watch that video, you will be able to see how the skin did look before I came back and added all the extra detail and like highlights here on her face and added a whole lot more shadows and everything all in here. But in this book, I think primarily every single thing I used in here, aside from the other mediums, like you could see a lot of gel pens and probably Posca and stickles and things like that. But the pencils that I primarily used in this book is Prismacolors. It's just a really cool book, and I just really love this book. And there was a time where I just colored nothing but pages in this book over and over again. And for my honorable mention for Deborah Muller, this is her new book. If you saw my last coloring book haul and review and flip through that I did, I featured this book in that video. She just very recently sent this book to me, and it is the cutest. Any of you that have any kind of craft hobby or anything, or we all know we all love coloring, that's why we're watching this channel, but this book is the cutest ever. Let me go ahead and flip through here and I'll just show you. But the whole entire book is just all girls and their crafts. Here's one, nothing but coffee. That is the cutest page ever. And then here's one, a girl doing her pottery. But every single one, Boss Babe, this is just the cutest book. And I saw this book and I was just like, oh my. So this just had to be my honorable mention for Deborah. But there is a page in here. I'm going to flip through a little bit faster because here it is. Okay, so this page, this just reminds me so much of myself. Like I just showed you that book previously that was just so like beaten on the front cover, at least to me beaten. That's like the most use or wear and tear that I've ever gotten in any one of my coloring books. But this just reminds me of me when I used to leave the house and go to the coffee shop and take my coloring books. This is that coloring book that was so beaten. stuck in the little bag there. This was totally me. I used to take that other coloring book and always made sure I had it in my bag to go to the coffee shop. But look how cute this is. She's got her holding her coloring books here in her hand. She's got some in her bag. She's got her pencils, and it looks like she is going to the park. But isn't that cute? And there is another one in here as well that is specifically coloring. Look, we've got a makeup girl. That is so cute. It reminds me of the beauty influencers on YouTube that are filming makeup videos. And then here's another adorable one where she is working on her scrapbook. Look at that. She's got some ink over here and some crayons. Is this just not the cutest thing? But there is another one in here where there is a girl that is actually working on some digital coloring, and I don't know if I just passed right by it, but I really wanted to be able to show you all that one. So yeah, here it is. She is actually working on digital coloring. She's got a digital coloring book here, and then she's got some other coloring books. Her little mug over here says, "I love to color." Is this not the cutest thing you've ever seen? She's got her little light over here, and I just love it. Oh my goodness. She has a snack. I don't ever bring snacks by my coloring books, but she's working on digital coloring, so I guess it doesn't matter, right? But this is just like one of the most fun books. It's called Artsy Girls, and it is by Deborah Muller. So this is another book that had very quickly become a favorite this year. This is Friendship, Vintage Grayscale Art by Rachel Mintz. I just wanted to go ahead and show you through this book just a little bit, but if you've been watching my channel for quite some time, you know that I just recently did a color along all with Derwent Inktense, and I colored this image here. So this is what it looks like. There were full tutorials in this as well. This image was done with quite a few different things. I printed this on my own paper. This is actually the Spring Hill paper. Rachel Mintz is not actually the name of the artist. Rachel Mintz is the name of the company, and they have quite a few different coloring books that are really adorable. There are a few others in this series, but in this video I'm just going to show this one because this one is one of my favorites. So I've used a few different mediums on this page here, and there's tutorials for every bit of it. I showed how to color fur. This was all with Prismacolors. His little pants over here, these were all with Derwent Inktense. Most of the rest of it was with Derwent Inktense. The little tree stump that he's sitting on, this was all Derwent Inktense. And then the ground is Derwent Inktense. The background was all done with Neocolors, and there is an actual tutorial on my channel showing you how to create this cloud background effect with Neocolors. So I really love the way this turned out, and I loved how the background turned out. So let me go ahead and show you a little bit through the book, and I'll just flip through it pretty quickly. But this one is from Amazon. So this is printed on the Amazon paper, but they're all going to be grayscale. And if you're a beginner, like I've said many other times, grayscale is a great way for you to improve your coloring because it's going to show you exactly where to lay your highlights and your darker colors and your midtones. So if you really want to focus on learning where to lay your colors on the image that you're coloring, using a grayscale image will really help you to improve your coloring skills and sort of just get an idea of where to lay your colors down on the page. Now, as far as the pencils go with this book, it's going to be the same as any other Amazon printed book that I've shown. So I like to use my Pablos, my Prismacolors, and what else did I say? I've used my 120 Brut Funers in the Amazon books. I mean, I brought in my glitter and my Posca and my gel pens in the Amazon printed books, and I've not had a problem. This book is going to be all one-sided, so if you are bringing in any other kind of medium that is something aside from pencils, make sure you just lift the page up over here and you stick something in here behind the page to protect the image on the next page. But look at all these adorable little bunnies. They are just the cutest thing ever. And that image that I colored, I had so much fun coloring that. I really did. And I will have a link to the Rachel Mintz website. And if you go to the website, you can use my code that I have down there, and you can end up getting a full coloring book to print out on your own paper for like $3 and some change or something like that. Like the discount that they're giving me to share with y'all is a pretty steep discount. and you can get the coloring books for close to nothing. It's totally worth it. And the last thing I wanted to share with y'all, I did a whole color along full width tutorials on this. This is by Mariola Budek. This is Yasmin. I so much enjoyed coloring this. This is actually on the Strathmore colored pencil paper. It's not a bright white, and I used Prismacolors on this. But I wanted to take this time at the end of the video just to add one more honorable mention, because this is not an actual book, this is an Etsy store. But I really wanted to recommend Mariola Budek's Etsy store because she has some beautiful images. And a lot of them are grayscale. This one was grayscale. I believe all her images are grayscale. But when you order from her Etsy store, you will get 3 different values of grayscale. And I think one I even have to print out is like a rainbow. And it just is very, very different. But you can order all of these portraits off of her Etsy store, and she has so many at this point, and her portraits are just so beautiful and so realistic. And it's like, once you finish coloring this, like, I look at this image and I just feel like she's looking back at me. It is just the neatest thing ever. It's like, I don't know, it was just this really satisfying feeling coloring this entire page and bringing this to life, because it's like I almost felt like I really brought her to life. She just looks so real. But I will have Mariola's Etsy store linked in the description box below if you're interested in checking it out and picking up some PDFs to color. But coloring grayscale, if you are just learning how to color skin or even hair and you're looking for grayscale images, it is a really great resource, because I really feel like coloring on grayscale will really show you, use it as a guide, and it will show you where to place your darker colors and where to place your lighter colors and where to place your midtones and all of that. Okay, so those were my top 10 favorite coloring books for 2021, and I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Everything that you've seen in this video and all of the colored pencils or supplies that I mentioned in this video as well, I will have everything linked down in the description box below. If you have any questions about any of these coloring books or any questions in general, please just list those in the comments below. I always do come back to my videos and I try to respond to every single comment that I receive. So let's also use the comments section to share a little bit, and if you've got a top 10 for 2021 that you would like to share as well, make sure you link those down below. If you made it this far through the video and you really enjoyed it, please do give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next video. Happy coloring. Bye.